United States.
The state of our union is strong because our people are strong.
I think this speech really made people feel optimistic that hadn't felt so recently.
Unemployment claims have hit a 45-year low.
There were a lot of really disgraceful moments last night. Black unemployment at historically low levels,
right?
And the Congressional Black Caucus can't get up and apply. I mean, is this not a nonpartisan issue?
Faith and family, not government and bureaucracy, are the center of American life. The motto is "In God We Trust."
When you're talking about the flag, in God we trust, of course, that's when the country needs to be united. And it was pretty disgusting on the flag.
Let's come together, set politics aside, and finally get the job done.
That looks like a painting. That looks like something that was sketched out and scripted. That is absolutely incredible, overlooking the Capitol. That's where we look on from the outside, and then we'll slowly zoom in and see what it looked like on the inside.
Red sky at dawn.
Amazing. If you have a chance, you've got to bring your children to Washington, D.C. The history here is unbelievable. It's so nice to be in a place. You used to live here. It's so nice to be here and know that Abraham Lincoln's desk was right there in the Capitol behind us.
It's beautiful.
Just amazing.
All my kids were born in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
It's coming home. Officially, sunrise is in 14 minutes, but the view as you look east out across the U.S. Capitol is stunning. And it was right back there on the House side, House of Representatives, where the President of the United States made his first State of the Union address. If you thought it was long, you were right. Bill Clinton went an hour and 29 minutes, I believe. The president last night went an hour 20. But you know what? He did a good job. He was upbeat, and he was deliberate, and he was disciplined.
And there was 115 applause lines, the third longest ever. And I think just when you think, wow, this is getting to be a laundry list, in comes an illustration.
Well, he talked about America. It was definitely a pro-America speech. He mentioned the word America 82 times. If you missed it, if you were sleeping last night, we got you covered. Listen.
Let's begin tonight by recognizing that the state of our union is strong because our people are strong. We have created 2.4 million new jobs. Unemployment claims have hit a 45-year low. African American unemployment stands at the lowest rate ever recorded. The stock market has smashed one record after another, gaining $8 trillion and more in value. We enacted the biggest tax cuts and reforms in American history. I recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. 1 year later, I am proud to report that the coalition to defeat ISIS has liberated very close to 100% of the territory. My duty and the sacred duty of every elected official in this chamber is to defend Americans and their right to the American dream, because Americans are dreamers too. There is nothing we cannot achieve as long as we have confidence in our values, faith in our citizens, and trust in our God. We will never fail.
You know, it was not an accident the president brought up our enemies out there, talked about the Iranian government, but saluted the Iranian people. He talked about the threat of North Korea and how we're attacking that, but then he humanized it with the torture in which the people of North Korea go through, especially one man in particular.
Yeah, there was one man in the audience, and he told his story, and we're going to play a soundbite of that. But before we do, let's set it up and tell you what happened to this man. When he was a child, his family was starving because they were living under this dictator, under this regime in North Korea. So he goes to the train tracks and he tries to steal some coal off of one of the train cars. And he was so famished that he passed out on top of the train tracks. A train ran over his limbs. He had several amputations without medications. He had to go to China to rehabilitate. He comes back to North Korea, and the North Korean regime tortures him. And then his brothers and sisters, they had a little bit of food, and they were feeding him while he was getting better. Meanwhile, their growth was stunted because they had to give their brother their food.
They were eating dirt.
They were eating dirt, exactly. So the president, now that you know that, listen to what the president said about that man as he was holding up his crutches.
Sung Ho traveled thousands of miles on crutches all across China and Southeast Asia to freedom. His father was caught trying to escape and was tortured to death. Today, he lives in Seoul, where he rescues other defectors. Today, he has a new leg. But Sung Ho, I understand you still keep those old crutches as a reminder of how far you've come. Your great sacrifice is an inspiration to us all. Please, thank you.
Such a powerful image of him holding those crutches. And, you know, the president was able to do something last night that I don't know that I remember in modern times any president doing. And it was not so much about, you know, the dreams for the future, although the president made it very clear what he wants to do next: immigration, infrastructure, things like that, unity. But he was able to tell the stories of people who are in America, ordinary Americans, including what happened to the Otto Warmbier family. What about that family of the cop down in Albuquerque that they adopted that little baby girl whose mother was addicted to heroin? And it goes on and on, where people like them and the families that fell to losing a child through MS-13. These were stories that you want to hear the rest of. You know, we've seen guests of the president before up in the First Lady's box with him, but we haven't heard so much about them. And the stories were so powerful. It wasn't so much about Donald Trump. It was about these Americans, ordinary Americans, and what they did this year.
Yeah, you know, this is the Trump GOP. This is Donald Trump teaching Americans that they can fight for what they believe in and that they can win. And he's doing this without being a doormat. He was pleading with Congress. He looked at the lawmakers and he said, if you're going to spend our tax dollars, make sure you're giving it to countries that support America. Put America first. And he really is winning. If you look at the tax reform, if you look at this memo being released where people who are doing wrong things, it's going to be revealed, and he's shedding light on that. If you look at the Democrats being defeated when the government shut down because he didn't want to give them what they wanted with DACA, I mean, it's a different GOP.
Right, and if the president in year two can moderate his tone just a little bit, he'll go a long way to maybe forcing the Democrats to get involved. Because last night, the ones that did show and about 12 didn't, the minute it ended, they headed for the exits. But the series of things that they did not stand for are staggering, from veterans' health care to the stock market success to infrastructure to the deal for dreamers to low African-American unemployment. Here's an example.
I call upon all of us to set aside our differences, to seek out common ground, and to summon the unity we need to deliver for the people. This is really the key. These are the people we were elected to serve. Hispanic American unemployment has also reached the lowest levels in history. Preston's reverence for those who have served our nation reminds us of why we salute our flag and why we proudly stand for the national anthem. In America, we know that faith and family, not government and bureaucracy, are the center of American life. The motto is, "In God we trust."
You know, when we had Jason Chaffetz with us just about 10 minutes or so ago, he admitted, you know, there were times that when he was a member of Congress, he didn't stand up every time, but there was just something unusual about it. Maybe it was the way it all got, I first noticed when the president was talking about the Dreamers and then went to the MS-13 members and you could hear the groans. Jason Chaffetz said the Democrats were actually hissing, which you just thought, okay, well, I can kind of understand that. But then you go down the list and Brian detailed that so effectively there. Why didn't they stand for that? Why didn't you look at the military? Stand for God.
You look at for God, for the military men and women that were in the audience. They were. He was telling a story about a little boy who's putting flags and carnations down on graves at Arlington, and he said, and that's why we stand for the national anthem. Now, I understand if some people have a beef with the NFL and all of that, but he was talking about God and talking about our veterans, and they still didn't stand up.
A couple of things. At the end, it was such a powerful message. The Democrats had to stand at the end. Even it was pointed out by Tara Palmieri on another network. It was difficult for the Dems to stay seated with its broad-stroke patriotic comments, especially how he closed out. Thought he closed out pretty strongly. And overall, I just look very curious to see where we go from here. There's two things they got to work on to get three. They got to get a budget. They got to get some type of DACA fix along with the border security, and they got to get an infrastructure thing going, or else they might as well should not show up for work.
But after watching the Democrats sit on their hands, I'm not very optimistic. I mean, it's one thing to make a political decision. You don't want to help the other party, but at the same time, everybody is so dug in, and you could see it. It's one thing to read about it in the newspaper or online, but to see those images of Nancy Pelosi just kind of gritting her teeth, deciding, I'm not going to clap for that. We asked you what you thought, and we got tons of responses.
Jim said, I loved the speech. As a father and grandfather, I loved the observation. American kids and dreamers are dreamers, too. Indeed, when I see how hard my kids have worked, I applaud them getting a fair chance at success.
All right, this from Laureen. She says, we stood up and applauded people with the State of the Union address, and we were home. Come on, Democrats, be America first, and Democrats second. I just wish we could book a Democrat and talk to them face to face.
Well, I think we've got one coming up very shortly. Well, he's right there. Okay, you'll see who that is in just a moment. But first.
All right, coming up, this veteran got a seat at the State of the Union thanks to Congressman Sean Duffy and his wife, Rachel. So how was it, that veteran? And all the Duffys are going to join us live coming up.
And Senator Joe Manchin just got on set, and he doesn't even want an overcoat.
Good morning, Joe.
Hey.
West Virginia guy.
Good to see you.
Now I feel bad wearing an overcoat. How you doing?
Baby, come give me a kiss. Put me on the cover of the Rolling Stone, uptown, down home, American kids. Here we go. Rolling up that little big house.
Well, Democrats refused to stand during a number of key topics of the president's address, including tax reform, the DACA deal, and even God.
In America, we know that faith and family, not government and bureaucracy, are the center of American life. The motto is, in God we trust.
Most Democrats sat when the president said that, but not this Democrat, West Virginia Democrat Joe Manchin. Why? He's about 6'5". We took the wide shot. We saw you get 6'3", but we saw you stood up a lot during the speech, but you were on the other side of the aisle. Were people mad at you for doing that?
No. That's the way I was raised in West Virginia. We have respect. There's some civility still yet, and there should be civility in this place. And, you know, in all fairness, Brian, I've seen it on both sides.
Yeah.
When Obama gave speeches, Republicans, that's disrespectful.
But I never saw the storming out afterwards. And so many empty seats.
Not me. I stood there and shook his hand and thanked him because he talked about coal. We're going to do coal research, research and development, opiate addiction. I need that. Infrastructure. I've never seen a pothole that belonged to a Democrat or Republican. We both get blamed for that one. So we got to fix this stuff.
Right. Absolutely.
Joe, I understand if you sit on your hands out here.
I'm okay.
That's what I'm doing.
No one told me you guys were going to be out in the elements.
I just thought people from West Virginia were tough.
We're tough. Watch it.
That's what I heard, okay?
Here's the thing. I was listening to our commentary after after the speech, and then you had the Democrats had Mr. Kennedy on giving their speech. And Brett,
first of all, I don't know how they choose who they choose. Okay, I know Joe Kennedy; he's a good young man, but I don't know who makes that decision. I really don't know.
What are his plans?
I wasn't considered. I know that.
Right.
Well, I was watching some of the commentators on Fox, and they were saying that it could actually hurt Democrats because if you look at America, you've got bonuses, more money in our 401ks, paychecks are going up.
You know, here's what I've said, Ainsley, that I did not vote for the tax bill. I tried everything I could. I worked with them. And I had some concerns about the debt that we're incurring, or first time we've ever started out thinking there could be $1.5 trillion. I looked at basically history of how we've done tax reform. We've never started along those lines. I know that it jump-started. I think it's going to be good. I'm hoping I'm wrong, and I've said this. These are things I had to use what I had in front of me, and then on top of that, the repeal of the mandate, which I knew we had to fix for the health care. But Lamar Alexander's done a wonderful job.
Yeah, but Joe, you know, you look at West Virginia, there are a lot of people getting bonuses. Their companies are going to be able to expand, buy new stuff. I mean, and you're on the wrong side of that. But you look at what the president talked about yesterday. He talked about how we need some immigration reform, obviously, and you've been working on that for a while. We need to do something about infrastructure. But when he took a look back at the things he's accomplished, you know, the economy is going.
And he and I have had this conversation, the president and I said, I hope it works out. I just think we could have had a permanent for the working person, too, because we're betting on the come that the next administration is going to basically say, okay, we're going to continue.
It's hard not to like tax cuts.
Oh, no, I agree.
But 40 seconds left. You have a common sense coalition.
Yes, we do.
And I believe that that's the best hope to getting anything done on infrastructure. And should you give people hope out there?
I think we will give people hope. We stopped this shutdown, and we've all come together. There's about 25 strong, evenly split Democrats and Republicans that have set more in the last week working face-to-face and since I've been here for 7 years.
That's great.
More in the last week. And it's really, it's just so encouraging and it's so helpful. And we're starting to find out where's the breaking point.
You ended the shutdown. You ended.
Well, Susan Collins is just a wonderful friend of mine. And together we did it in 2013. We're going to do it again.
Senator, yes or no, will there be an immigration plan, a deal?
I think there will be. It has to be. This country has to move forward. We cannot sit back and not happen and let politics take over.
The Democrats will meet in the middle.
I think we'll all meet. The Republicans and Democrats is going to meet, and we're going to find the middle.
And if
well, thanks for meeting on the roof with us.
We're still looking for that middle.
All right. Hey, thanks so much, Senator Manchin.
Thanks, Brian.
And this veteran got a seat at the State of the Union thanks to Congressman Sean Duffy and his wife, Rachel. How was it? Did they have a good time? Well, they're still speaking, and our green room is...
BP's natural gas teams use smart app technology to share data from any well instantly, so they can analyze trends and stop potential problems in their tracks.
Good morning to you. We'll be back with more on the State of the Union live from Washington in just a few minutes. But first, some other stories making headlines this morning. The Justice Department launching an investigation into whether ousted Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe slowed down the Hillary Clinton email probe. The Washington Post reports McCabe knew about emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop about 3 weeks before James Comey notified Congress about them. Those emails sent to Weiner's laptop by his wife and Clinton aide, Huma Abedin. McCabe was removed from his post on Monday. Well, the president was caught on a hot mic vowing to release a classified intelligence memo.
Let's release the memo. Oh, yeah. Don't worry. 100%.
Well, you heard it there. President Trump speaking to Congressman Jeff Duncan after the State of the Union. The FISA memo reportedly details surveillance abuses by the Justice Department and FBI during the 2016 election. And the worker who sent the false Hawaii missile alert thought it was a real emergency and not just a drill. The alert creating statewide panic for 38 minutes before officials issued a correction. The head of Hawaii's emergency management agency has taken full responsibility and has resigned. Send it back down to you guys in Washington.
You looked awesome. Yes. All right. Thank you so much, Jillian. Well, it all started with this tweet. U.S. Army veteran Ricky Taylor challenging Congresswoman Maxine Waters to give him her seat at President Trump's State of the Union address after he heard that Maxine Waters was going to skip the speech.
Well, she never got back to him, but thanks to an invite from Congressman Sean Duffy and his wife Rachel, who have a family that's screaming off camera right now, Ricky's dream of attending the State of the Union came true last night, and he joins us live along with the Duffys. Ricky, you were all dressed up. What was it like?
Oh, it was just a phenomenal experience. And as for my tux, I figured I had to stand out a little bit.
But
a tuxedo.
Oh yeah, I was in a tux.
That's awesome.
I just had to stand out. But it was a phenomenal experience. You know, the president, just to see him up there, I was kind of awestruck. And you know, especially when he said that Americans are dreamers too, I thought I was going to go through the whole roof. Like I stood up. It was great.
What was
I had
the
a great
best
time.
part?
You know, the best part was just how patriotic, you know, the president is, and how, you know, America first he is, and just to see, especially see like the whole Republican side just all on board with the president. I thought that whole thing was amazing. I can't say the same for the Democrats.
Are you and Rachel on speaking terms? Because you stole her ticket.
Well, listen, I told him, I said, in exchange for the ticket, you have to babysit the kids. And he said, no way. He's done 2 tours in Afghanistan.
These kids?
Babysit my kids.
Yeah, I did 2 tours, and I'm not touching that. That's 8 of them.
They're the most well-behaved kids in America.
No, let me tell you what happened behind the scenes. Sean comes out here. All the kids are over here to the side. Beautiful family. Hey, kids. Sean comes out here with his coffee. Rachel comes out with a sippy cup.
And they run and take it upstairs.
Yeah. The differences in moms and dads, right?
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Rachel, how did this all happen? Because you were watching Fox and Friends, right?
I was in my kitchen. I saw it. I called up Sean. I was like, did you see that too? He's like, yeah. I'm like, I'll give it to him. He's like, let's do it. And here we are.
What was it like in the chamber?
I gotta tell you, so I mean, Ricky coming in all suited up, talks, looking sharp. I'm like, oh god, this guy's killing us on every level. He's great. I thought the speech was fantastic. The energy and enthusiasm on our side to hear that message from the podium was raucous. But I gotta tell you, it was disappointing, sad that this is all Democrats have. That they're gonna sit down at some great American moments as the president was calling out some wonderful people. There they sit, just in protest. That's how lame their party has become.
But Sean, when you were a congressman under Barack Obama, there were times you didn't stand.
But I didn't sit the whole speech. You know what? There's things that Barack Obama would say that I would agree with, and I could applaud for that, right? Not everything, but Democrats, there's a whole section they just go, we're going to sit down.
And we brought all our kids out to the inauguration for Barack Obama because it's an American moment, and I think that's what Ricky really did here. Is he reminded everybody this isn't about Republican, this isn't about Democrat. The State of the Union is about the union.
Right. Well, you talk about your background a lot. And the president said the Hispanic unemployment is at an all-time low. African-American unemployment's at an all-time low. That's something all Americans should stand for. That's wonderful.
Should cheer for. And by the way, 3 times the amount of Dreamers being offered citizenship should they agree to secure the border. It's an amazing offer, and I think he laid it out really well. It'll be hard for the Hispanic community to say no to that.
Yeah, the other thing...
You get 3 times more in Dreamers, and they're calling them a racist.
Ricky, the president also said we had to break the caps on the defense spending and help Secretary of State Mattis. He goes, he's doing it, Secretary of Defense Mattis, and he's doing a great job. And the place erupted.
Oh yeah,
you're in the military.
Oh yeah, I'm a veteran. Anytime I see anything that helps our military members and their families, I just find that exemplary. Especially when he talks about the VA and how there were so many times, and I go through the VA. I have 100% disability, so I go through the VA, and you can see sometimes they don't even care. But we're getting rid of those people. Right. I can see it on my side, and I think it's great.
Of course, the reason you're here is because Maxine Waters said she wasn't going to use her seat. Look in camera 1. Tell Congresswoman Maxine Waters what she missed last night.
I honestly, what Congresswoman Maxine Waters missed was, to me, one of the proudest moments for me to be an American. To be able to talk about America first and veterans first. When you have so many people so excited about being optimistic about America, it's just sad that her and some of the other Democrats, they don't seem to share that enthusiasm as a lot of us Americans do.
Ricky, you talk about optimism. I am very optimistic that you're going to be a great father one day. Can you give me one of these kids? Hey, Margarita. I remember you from Cooking with Friends. Look at this, Ricky. How can you say no to that? Look at that. Is she not adorable?
Not only he gets a ticket to the State of the Union, and he gets to watch kids.
Dad will be the best thing ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
One day.
Ricky, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Now you scared him.
Rachel, Sean, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us.
All right. It may be the line of the night. President Trump on immigration. Listen.
My duty is to defend Americans and their right to the American dream, because Americans are dreamers too.
What does Newt Gingrich think about that? He's going to join us live along with Bill Bennett, Dave Bozzi, Corey Lewandowski, and the entire Sean Duffy and Rachel Campbell Duffy family.
High fives.
Sorry, I don't feel comfortable.
Atop the dome of this Capitol stands the Statue of Freedom. She stands tall and dignified among the monuments to our ancestors, monuments to Washington and Jefferson and Lincoln and King. Freedom stands tall over one more monument, this one, this Capitol. This is the monument to the American people.
And you saw some Democrats get up on that. It's the building they work in. How could they not be clapping for the Capitol building? Fox News contributor and former Speaker of the House, good friend of ours, Newt Gingrich here. Mr. Speaker, welcome.
Good to be here.
Man who spent a lot of time in that building.
Would you have stood for that line?
Sure. I mean, I was.
Doesn't matter if a
Democrat said it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one part of the art of a State of the Union is to say things that guarantee that people have to stand. And part of what you saw last night, and my particular favorite, my newsletter today talks about Speaker Pelosi, who I believe if you took all the pictures of her last night and put them together in one package, you'd know why you wouldn't want her to be Speaker again. I mean, I have never seen anybody so openly disgusted with being there. I mean, she hated being there.
It looked like she was thinking, do we stand for this? Because if she stood up, everybody else would stand up as well. But going in, how does it work? As Speaker, as a leader of a party, do you say, okay, obviously we're opposing the president. Let's not do any of that stuff. Let's not clap too much.
I mean, normally, actually, you both with Clinton and with Obama, the Republicans would have said, you know, try not to break out and try not to be negative, because you have the whole country watching. It's the highest-rated political event of the year, and so. And you saw that in the audience last night, and you also saw, by the way, that independents and Republicans loved the speech.
Yep.
Democrats generally didn't like the speech, and that's because you all did the other morning this thing where you interviewed the students about how they felt about the speech the night before,
before it happened.
Right.
I love
and they knew what they were supposed to say. And, you know, oh, I really hated the speech. He was really terrible.
Right.
So what does the president need to do going forward? Because we've seen in the polls, even independents like the speech last night, some Democrats were giving it a C, or some of the points at least a C. Normally they're giving it F.
The Democrat is like a huge jump.
Exactly. So what does he need to do going forward?
I think the most important thing he could do is stay on message, at least through the Sunday talk shows. Avoid all the temptation to go off and tweet about something irrelevant. Avoid all the effort by the elite media who are going to be dragging bait in front of him, and begging him, because this was a very successful speech. We're actually going to go through today and list every reform he proposed. I mean, I think it may have more reforms in it than any speech I can remember. And a lot of them are going to be very hard for Democrats to oppose. I mean, you're going to oppose trying to improve the cost of drugs. You're going to oppose working on the opioid crisis. I mean, you go down that list. He had some very intelligent, very practical things in that speech. And now he and his cabinet have got to make it real. I swapped notes last night with a senior member of the White House who wrote me back. I said, great line, glad you got it in there. And he wrote back and he said, but now we have to execute. And that's the right attitude. And now they got to make it real.
And they can't do it in many cases without some Democratic support, so he's got to do that. The president's elected not to go out on the road after the State of the Union and pound these themes to wherever he chooses, whether it's Pennsylvania or Arizona or Florida. Why? And do you back him up on not doing that?
Well, I think well, first of all, I think his events on the road are inherently partisan because of who they attract. I mean, and he then gets into responding. I also think he understands, and this is something Reagan came to understand, last night was a home run. You don't need to go out and also sell popcorn and also go down and sell beer and also you need to be the star. I think he's got to do some media. I think he's going to be down at the Greenbrier, for example, talking to the congressional Republicans in their retreat
tomorrow.
And I think he's got to drive these themes. But I think he ought to stay presidential. I mean, he was very good in Davos at being president of the United States.
Right.
He was very good last night as president of the United States. He doesn't need to revert to being candidate Trump.
Does that suggest to you that in the first year he's learned? He's grown. Obviously, there's a lot of on-the-job training, but he's grown as a president.
Yeah, and I think he said this to the news media sometime, I think it was yesterday, when he said, you know, I've had to learn that a lot of the things you do as a businessman aren't enough if you're a public leader, because you have to have more heart, you have to have more vision. And in that sense, I don't know if he'd be happy hearing this, but he clearly is a bigger, more comprehensive figure than he was a year ago.
What was the best line of the night?
Oh, I think the Americans are dreamers, too.
Yeah.
I think it was the best line.
Right, and it was a message. Some Democrats said that was a slap to the dreamers that were in the audience, but that's really the number one.
Well, look, some Democrats are so idiotically out of touch with reality that the idea of describing all of us collectively as dreamers is offensive to them, because then they'd have to be pro-American.
Right. Lastly, real quick, the president's got an opportunity now. He's going to be commenting on what's going on with the FBI and the memo. Are you recommending that he stay away from that conversation?
You don't have to do anything. All he's got to do is have Sarah go out to the press corps and say, "Hi, here's the memo." I mean,
right.
You don't have to
Any
say
questions?
Sure. He doesn't have to.
Right.
But
well, that's why I'm hoping for 1 week that he will avoid temptation.
I got a feeling nothing's going to come out till at least Monday. Dude, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You guys.
Thanks for being with us.
All right, still to come on our show from the roof, we've got Eric Trump, Diamond and Silk, as you can see right there, Senator Marco Rubio, and David Bossie, all here live.
I think Dave Bossie wants a new picture.
All right, hey, Corey.
Nobody can drag me down. Nobody can drag me down. Nobody me down. I got fire for a heart. I'm not scared of
More jobs, tax cuts, and a booming stock market. President Trump outlining his plan to push America's economy to the very, very top.
The lives of many. The era of economic surrender is totally over. From now on, we expect trading relationships to be fair and, very importantly, reciprocal.
Here to react, former Trump campaign managers and co-authors Let Trump Be Trump, Corey Lewandowski and David Bossie. I just can't even say your names without smiling, because y'all are so fun to have on the show.
Well,
the book's doing so well. What was your reaction to the speech last night?
Well, I loved it. This was exactly what the president needed to do, and it's exactly what I expected him to do. He's the greatest game-time player we've ever seen in politics. He rises to the occasion, whether it was the debates during the campaign or these types of speeches at the United Nations or before Congress. He's just awesome on that stage.
Yeah, Corey, you're famous for having said, let Trump be Trump, let him just go out there, make some jokes, have some fun, do a lot of ad-libbing. He didn't do any of that last night.
No, I don't think that's true. Look, this speech had Donald Trump's fingerprints all over it. He was very involved in the drafting with Stephen Miller, who's one of his top policy advisors. They had a plan. The president has been talking about how good the economy has been now for the last year. But he also talked about some very serious issues, the MS-13 issue. And when he highlighted the people in the audience who had been affected by that terrible gang incidents, and what he said was, we're going to stop it. We're going to protect your families and other families. That hits home for a lot of people.
Yeah, 129 times he said we, 104 times he said our, only 29 times he said I. It was really trying to be inclusive. I thought something else was interesting. I always see how the president reacts to what's in the room, and he kept looking over and seeing those guys, men and women standing on the left, the Democrats. Were you thinking to yourself as campaign managers, he's going to say something? He's going to say something. Are you guys going to stand for this?
Well, look, he said to him a couple times,
Come on, get up.
How do you not get up when he talks about the lowest unemployment for African Americans in the history of our country, and the Democrats the Congressional Black Caucus doesn't get up and celebrate that? That's not a Republican or Democrat idea. That's an American ideal. So support people who are trying to make our country better, and there are things that this president has done which are not partisan, which are good for the country, and he doesn't get the credit he deserves.
And the military. Let's just go. I mean, the patriotic call that he had for rebuilding our military and America's strength at home and abroad. and they sit there with on their hands. It was embarrassing for me to watch them.
The president did not bring up Russia. Some were slamming the president. For example, take a listen.
Talk about the issue that wasn't in the speech, and that's Russia.
And at the same time, he doesn't even mention that Russian threat.
In terms of the Russia investigation, the president obviously did not talk about that at all tonight during the State of the Union. It looms large over his presidency.
It looms large.
Lion Brian. Lion Brian over here talking about Russia. I mean, of all the people, Lion Brian Williams is the guy who's out there talking about Russia. You gotta be kidding me. This guy has as much credibility as Brian Ross does now. There's zero credibility. You cannot give the president the credit he deserves. I don't ever remember Barack Obama saying, let's talk about the Uranium One deal during my State of the Union, or the Hillary Clinton emails, or any of the other things that were going on during his administration. The hypocrisy of the media is so outrageous. 74% of the independents who saw the speech said, we loved it, we agree with the president. 97% of the Republicans.
And let's recognize what is a threat to the United States, and that's North Korea. I mean, he did talk about that threat, and he reminded the American people about Otto. And Otto's parents being Warmbier, his parents who were in the audience. It was such a heartfelt moment by the president, and it was an amazing thing and so important to remind the American people about the animals that we're dealing with over
Hey, guys, Let Trump Be Trump is a great book. It's very interesting that Lewandowski, then Dave Bossie. If there's a sequel, will it be David Bossie and Lewandowski? We're going to follow that story as it develops. All right. Oh, we're going to see. We're going to find that out, okay? Guys, we're going to blow the lid off this whole little partnership. Hey, what did the Trump family think of the address? I have an idea. Let's ask Eric. We booked him.
All right, plus the president honoring our heroes last night, including this Marine who lost his sight and both legs, fighting for our country, fighting for you in Iraq. He then became the first blind double amputee to ever re-enlist, and yesterday he met the president. Corporal Matthew Bradford joins us live next.
I will proudly take a stand when liberty's in jeopardy.